2 weeks ago, we went over all the listing documents that you have to have under the new NAR rules. And then last week, we had a bunch of updates to the contracts. This week, we're going to go over the buy side of the contracts because it's confusing. If you want a copy of this flowchart, there's a link in the description, so click that and I'll email you one. But this is what I'm using to keep myself on track. So let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm your favorite tech training broker, Bren Brewer. Today, let's go through this flowchart and let's go over those documents. So on the buy side, you're going to fill out your buyer rep agreement. So let's go over that. There's going to be two options. It's going to be either your short form or your long form. So here we are, buyer agent starts here. We're going to do a long form or the short form. So first up is the short form. This is going to be a short form for a reason. This is not going to give you the greatest protection in the transaction. So you will use this form if you are doing mostly only showing services. This is the only time I would use this form. You're going to fill out parties and everything just like normal, but under number 5 here it says broker obligations. You're going to select whether it's full service or showing service. Personally, if I'm doing full service, I'm doing a long form. I'm not going to do this short form, but I know there are those exceptions. Sometimes, buyers don't want to fill out the other one. That's okay. You can always amend and or terminate this agreement and move over to the long form later. So what we're going to do, we're going to select that, and if it is a showing service, it shows here that paragraph 6, 7, and 8 do not apply, that the broker will provide client with access to properties in the market area, and the client will pay broker a fee of blank due upon execution of this agreement. Please remember that all money should go through your broker. It does not come straight to you. So if you're charging a fee here, that's got to go to your broker. There is no amount of money that can go to you for real estate. Client obligations are listed here, and then the compensation. 6, 7, and 8 do not apply if this is for showing services only. You will only fill out the rest if you marked full services on this form. And then it reads very much like the long form, which we're going to switch over to now. The long form is extremely straightforward. Remember that the parties, put the client and the broker, the definitions. This is going to be where you input your market area. This cannot be ambiguous. It has to be specific areas. And I'm talking, you have to put the county, like Harris County, Fort Bend County, Montgomery County, Waller County, Chambers County, Liberty County. You have to put each specific county that you may or may not work in. You can't put Harris County and surrounding or Montgomery County and surrounding. That is not going to work. It cannot be open-ended. Make sure you're putting exactly where you are working. If I work in Harris County and the surrounding counties, then I would put all of those counties in number 3C for market area. For term, that's going to be your term like normal. This is not a change. And then your 7 here, broker compensation. Your broker's fee when earned and payable, client will pay broker blank percent or a flat fee. Now remember, we went over these changes last week, so you're going to put that in here for purchases or for leases. This is going to ensure that you get paid by the buyer if the seller is not offering compensation. So that was the big change from last week. So we have this. It's done. It's signed. Now what? So let's go back to our flow chart. We've got our representation agreement. It says, is compensation being offered from the seller? Yes or no? So if no, you can just negotiate offers and execute contracts because your buyer is paying you the compensation because you have a buyer rep agreement in place. Or when you're submitting offers, you can submit that with an addendum regarding broker fees. So let's pull that document up. The addendum regarding broker fees. This is going to be property specific, and it's going to be attached to your purchase contract, your offer package. And you do not use this addendum with any farm and ranch, okay? So it says fees will be payable, and you'll put the county that your brokerage office is in. And then listing broker fees. Seller shall pay listing broker the fees specified in a separate written representation agreement. And then other broker fees will be paid as specified below. So no matter what, you can use this form. If there's no cooperating compensation offered and the seller was not willing to offer compensation, then you're going to fill out D2B to make a new obligation to the seller. If there was cooperating compensation offered, you're going to fill out D1. If there's no cooperating compensation offered but the seller has agreed previously to pay, then you will do D2. So it's going to be an either or. Okay, it's going to be one or two, and then if you choose two, it's going to be A or B. Okay, and that's where these other forms are coming in that are in my flow chart, right? But if you don't have 2401 or 2402, if your answer was a no, you use this B. So you use this option only if there is no separate written compensation agreement between seller and other broker. So now let's go this side. If the compensation is being offered from the seller, yes. Is the compensation co-op compensation? Co-op compensation is where the seller pays the listing brokerage pays the buyer's brokerage that brings the buyer, right? So that is cooperating compensation. You're going to use Form 2402 for that. And that is the compensation agreement between brokers. So what that means is the seller is paying the listing side, the listing brokerage, and the listing brokerage is paying the buyer brokerage. You'll fill this out, you'll put the listing in the cooperating broker, you'll put the full address of the property, you'll register your client with that broker, you'll put a term, and then you'll put any of the fees that were agreed upon. You'll fill out the bottom and sign it. Both brokerages need to sign. Listing agent and buyer agent needs to sign. Back to the flow chart. If it's not cooperating compensation, but the seller is paying the compensation, then it's the agreement between broker and owner. It's pretty much the same almost form as a compensation agreement between brokers, but this is between the other broker and the owner of the property. So you're going to put parties, you're going to put the broker, you're going to put the property address and the legal description, asking price. Owner is presently asking blank to sell the property or blank to lease the property. You are going to register your client with the owner. The agreement is going to begin on this date and end on this date. And then it says broker's fee. Owner is not obligated to pay broker a fee until such time as broker's fee is earned and payable. And then you will put here what you and the seller have agreed to pay you. A1A is a percent of the sales price. And then you could put a B as a flat fee, or you can do B for leases. 2 would be renewals, and 3 would be a subsequent sale to a tenant. So those are the three ways: sales, leases, renewals. Those are the three ways that you could get paid on a possible property from the owner if they were not offering cooperating compensation. Then it tells you here on number 7, this discloses that who you represent, if you're representing the owner or the prospect only, or if it's an intermediary situation. If there's any other addenda, you'll put those here. The broker will sign and the owner will sign. The listing agent does not need to sign this. And then if you need to make any changes to the buyer rep agreement, you're going to, yes, use Amendment to Buyer Rep. It's Form 1505. And that is this amendment here. And you will just fill it out like you would any other amendment. It says on blank, so it's going to be the date that you entered into the buyer rep agreement with your client. And then it's going to be effective. That's going to be today's date, or the date that this will go into effect. You'll either change your market area, the date the agreement ends. So if you used the short form buyer representation agreement, you can use C here to change to full services, or to choose if client does or does not authorize broker to act as an intermediary. And then if you change broker fees, you also must complete D here. So it's going to be the same as what's on the buyer rep agreement. So you'll put the percent of your sales price or your flat fee, and then you'll put the property address as well. Same goes for leases. You'll put the percent of 1 month's rent or the percent of all rents or a flat fee. And you will put the property address. Either buyer rep agreement that you filled out, the short form or the long form, bonuses are in the amendment. So if there is a situation where there's a bonus to the selling agent in some way, you will fill out this form and you and your client will both have to sign it, and you will fill out Part E. The point of all these rule changes is disclosure, 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 that the parties have to sign and acknowledge that they understand that you're getting this much in compensation and that you're getting this much in a bonus. So if anything changes, you will need to make sure that you amend your buyer rep agreement. And then, of course, F is the client instructs the broker to cease providing services under the agreement and to resume providing services upon receipt of further instructions or blank. This agreement is not terminated and remains in effect for all other purposes. Or you can change any other paragraph in the agreement with G. Everybody will sign and date. And that is the amendment. So using the flowchart, I hope that is a little bit easier for you. If you want a copy of this, make sure to click the link below and request your copy, and I'll email it over to you. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week.